I know. Well, welcome. Hey, and Steve, thank you for taking some time. I have Steve Heethuis with me. So tell us where you're from.
Yeah, appreciate it, Eric. My name's Steve Heethuis, and I'm with NN Mobile Solutions. I'm the training director there. So I get to interact with our apprentices and scholarship students and co-op students and everything else.
Awesome. And Steve and I have worked together several times over the years, and figured he would be a great person to talk to about what employability skills are and why they're so important. So I have a few questions for you, and some of them might be a little redundant. And if that's the case, you could just say, hey, just give me a different example, because I'm sure you got a lot of them. But the first question is, what are some of the struggles that you are facing and NN Mobile Solutions are facing when it comes to interviewing or hiring young people today? Be specific. Give me an example.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges that we've had is not necessarily on the hiring and interviewing side. We're pretty adept at hiring, high school students. One of the biggest challenges, though, has been attendance. And when I say attendance, you go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But just to give you a context, we give raises based on a couple different things, and attendance is one of them. And 2/3 of our last apprenticeship class was not eligible for a raise because they weren't showing up on time, right? And I know there's a lot of discussion about flexibility, and we actually build that in. But it's really vital, and it's really important for a student or an individual to show up when they say they're going to show up. We can flex sometimes and all that kind of stuff. But it is as simple as making sure that you do what you say you're going to do and be there when you need to be. So that's been significant for us this past six to 12 months, and maybe even a little further back.
Sure. No, it's interesting that you said that. Another interview said something similar, like, and we're talking interns. It just said that people we're supposed to be in an 8, they didn't just show up till noon, and even more than that, they don't even communicate. So that's another interesting. All right, so question number 2 is, tell me some of the skills that you find, in addition to attendance, some of the skills you find to be most lacking among young people today.
Yeah, we're a technical organization, and we're capable of teaching the technical skill sets that go alongside it. I think one of the most important things that we're finding out, though, is we have a generation, we have individuals that are used to just being able to Google the answer, right? So whether it's a math fact or whether it's a historical fact or whatever it is, and the type of work that we do, you really can't Google it, right? You can't just do a search for it and come up with the answer. And so one of the most significant skills that we're having to teach is to look beyond just the surface answer and dig deeper and ask the questions behind, kind of the face value, and try and understand what's going on. And again, we could teach the technical content, but it's that initiative to not just accept the surface response as being final, and really to kind of push beyond that.
Yeah. So why do you think, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, why do you think kids are struggling with that? You mentioned like Googling it, they're just used to just getting an answer real quick, or in another interview, they talked about, just kids are it's about the grades and stuff for them in school for some of those kids, but they don't think of the reasons, like, why do I need to know this? Why do you think kids are struggling so much with problem solving is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I have 2 teenagers. I have 2 high schoolers right now myself, right? So I get to see the other side of what's going on. And some of it's personality. There's a curiosity that needs to be taught, and there's a curiosity element that I think helps when a student is naturally curious and wants to dig deeper. But I also think, I look at the way that my 9th grader is responding to his environmental science, right? This is all data that's readily available. He's just got to search it up and then kind of regurgitate it on a study guide and then regurgitate it for a test. And so there's a little bit of that going on, but I think it comes down to context as well. Like, why is there a value to knowing and asking beyond? And I think when our educators can not only test a student's knowledge, but also can ask them to think deeper, I think that's where, we're encouraged to see students that they have a lot of resources. And quite frankly, the students that we're seeing really have the ability and technical mindset to push further, but they have to be encouraged to do that.
Sure. No, I like that response. That's good. Yeah. Some of these skills that you find lacking among, and I don't want to just say it's young people, but a lot of people today, but especially around this new generation, it's probably every generation complains about the one before it, but this, our kids today are younger people, they're struggling. Why, in your opinion, is this a problem? Or phrase it another way, how is this impacting your organization?
From our standpoint, we need to refresh and reanalyze the things that we're teaching employees that are coming in, especially apprentices, which is vital for our long-term success. And so it's things like, okay, what does it look like to not reply all on an email, or what does it look like to to recognize that you may not have the answer, but it's still okay to ask the question when you're around a group of people that are technically more skilled than you. And so I think encouragement for these students, for these apprentices that we're hiring specifically, to say I don't know, and that's okay, right? That's what we can teach you, but to encourage them to say I don't know, I'm not sure, right? Tell me why we're doing this. And I think that's a refresh for us, that we need to recognize there's just a
I think it froze up on me here.
yeah, there.
Yeah, I'm there. It froze up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll cut that out.
Gotcha. I don't know where we left out. I was just encouraging our apprentices to ask beyond kind of that surface, and if they don't understand it, speak up. Because,
yeah, that's good.
That's where we're going.
That's good. All right. So, and you've kind of already touched on a couple, but I'm just thinking about give me a specific story or a specific example of this, just as one person where you were just shocked by an employee's lack of career readiness or preparedness or just self-awareness when it comes to something at work.
One of the most important things to do for anybody coming into a new organization is try to absorb as much as possible, as quick as possible, right? It just helps get your bearings. It helps you understand what's going on. In the example I'm thinking of is where this individual, really didn't take any notes, was really quick to pull out their phone as soon as they felt like they had some downtime, wasn't quick to, kind of help out around kind of that team dynamic. And it was just a lack of awareness of how important it is to build credibility with the individuals around you in a team, right? And so it's one thing to just talk to that individual about, making judicious decisions about when they can or can't be on their phone.
Yeah.
It's more about teaching them self-awareness of there are people around you that are depending on you to do certain things. There are people around you that, expect certain activities to be done. And this is part of what you're being compensated for. It's not, it's not to just kind of sit in a corner, right? So just I say the self-awareness of a young individual trying to learn the ropes, or should be trying to learn the ropes, and they're just kind of taking that space for granted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get that. So it's one thing to not know it. It's just unaware that it's important to put your best foot forward and other people are watching you, right?
Yeah. Right. And understand that they, in our environment, what they do at their given, responsibility affects individuals further downstream as well. So they, whether they realize it or not, their immediate actions can affect many other individuals. And, in our world, it's safety critical features as well. So it's significant.
Sure. All right. I'm going to flip the script just a little bit here. Looking to educators. If you could speak to educators, what you've done for me before, what would you say to them to try and help them understand or convince them of the critical nature of making sure that students are graduating with these very skills? Because teachers are saying, well, we're doing this already. And it's not to knock teachers. They're saying, we're doing this already, but clearly they're not coming with these skills. So what would you say to those teachers? Or I just got to make sure that they're passing these tests because that's what I'm being measured on. What would you say to them?
The requirements for our educators right now are what they are. And I think anybody that's familiar with that has an appreciation for how challenging of an environment that is, especially with all the COVID and everything else. What I would encourage teachers is to engage their students to think beyond just what's on the sheet of paper in front of them. and to think about application, to think about, again, that curiosity, to just, it may not translate exactly to, the grade that the student attains immediately, but all it takes is a seed. It takes a kernel, and once that's planted, we can cultivate that, right? That's what we're about, is creating that culture. We're not responsible for them getting an A or B or a C. We're responsible for teaching them how to grow and to be a part of a team. And so as an employer, that's what I would say. I think the other thing that I've heard, kind of anecdotally from teachers and even counselors, is a hesitation to recommend a student because they're not sure if their student's ready, right? So I don't know if I want to recommend, Sam or Sally to come and interview because I'm not sure that they're ready. And what I think is important to convey is that most entry-level positions and individuals aren't ready. And that's what our job is. When we craft an apprenticeship, we're going to teach technical content, but we're also going to teach them, the skills that are necessary to join our team. And so when it comes to character, when it comes to honesty, when it comes to, do they try, those are the things that we're going to be able to mold and cultivate in somebody and help them grow up.
Good. That's good. All right. That's really good. All right. So I don't know if it's my final question, but we're going to look at it like the question here. Looking back on your high school self, what advice or suggestions do you have for teachers that you think might have helped you to be better prepared for these skills? Now, you just said yourself that we're not looking for perfection, but what could you have said? You know what? I would have been a little bit better prepared if I had what?
So I feel like I was very uniquely positioned. I had a sophomore, actually it was a church history teacher, say, hey, look, some of you are going to pursue college, some of you are going to pursue work, and the delayed gratification of wanting to just go out and buy things, right? If you go to school, that'll help you out. What I think is unique for me is I was able to work and go to school, right? I did the UPS, earn and learn program, worked part-time. And for me, man, it was so valuable to learn in context, right? I was taking classes, but I was also applying some of those things at work. And it was such a valuable experience for me. So I think from an educator standpoint, really encouraging students to take a step, right? I was invited by a buddy in the weight room. Hey, we're going to go apply at UPS. You want to come along? And I did, right? So it's that initiative. It's just that invitation to go try and push yourself. And it really set, my whole career kind of down a path that I was very grateful for at this point. But it was because of a willingness and an encouragement to just take a step, even if it's not, a clear path of what you're going to do, the rest of your life, go out and get started, take a step. And even if you have to go left or right after a while, that's all right. Just keep plugging forward instead of staying still.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate your time, Steve. Thank you so much for offering some of your insights. I appreciate your understanding too that it's tough for educators today, right? It's always been tough for educators, but even in a during COVID world, it becomes even increasingly tough with all the things that we're having to deal with. But understanding that what we could be doing, interacting and interweaving it within our instructional content to help them see beyond the high school, whether it's going to a degree or going right into the workforce, those are the skills that we could be preparing them for in addition to any specific content. Thanks for your time and appreciate it. Hopefully we get to talk again soon.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it. And I hope your conference goes well.